Hello everyone, I am Dr. Pooja Johari and I am recording biochemistry videos and the important questions and the topics which have been asked in PG NEET paper so far. Now, as per the demand of certain students of mine, this video is actually, I have recorded some of the questions, important questions which can be asked in UG NEET 2020. As such, the tentative date for UG NEET is 26th of July. So maybe you people have just 1 month for you to prepare for this UG NEET. So this is again a small effort from my side. I have discussed about 20 to 22 questions which have been asked in UG NEET for the past 15-20 years. So let's start up with the discussion of the questions. This is actually a video for discussing UG NEET 2020. And whatever questions I have taken, they have been asked in the previous years. Some of the questions I have taken from textbook of biology by Dhami, and some of the questions I have taken from Pradeep's book of biology, which is for competitive examinations. Now let's take up question number 1. Enzymes act by. First of all, you should know what do you mean by enzymes? How do we define an enzyme? Enzymes are the biocatalysts which increases the rate of a reaction. Rate of a reaction. Now, all of you must be familiar with the difference between the enzyme and the catalyst. Catalyst is always catalyzing a chemical reaction, and enzymes are catalyzing the biochemical reactions. Means the reactions which are taking place in our body. All enzymes are proteins except ones in which RNA acts as a catalytic agent. So now the question arises, how these enzymes increases the rate of a biochemical reaction. Now all of you know, what do you mean by a reaction? If we talk about a catalyst, say A plus B will give C plus D. If this reaction is occurring, say, in the absence of the catalyst in about 5 minutes, if we add a catalyst, say platinum, if we add, so what happens is the rate of the reaction will increase and the time will decrease. Say the reaction will be accomplished in 2 minutes. Because whether we study chemistry, whether we study biochemistry, it is one and the same thing. If I talk about exothermic and endothermic reactions. Endo means the reaction which is accompanied by the absorption of heat, and exo is where the heat is given out. So whether the reaction is exothermic, whether the reaction is endothermic, it has to cross this energy barrier before being converted to product. Here, transition state is produced where new bonds are produced and old bonds are broken. So what happens is all the reactants, we say, depends upon the number of effective collisions. If the number of effective collisions are more, obviously they will attain this energy barrier, they will cross this energy barrier, and they will be efficiently converted into the product, which is determining the enthalpy change, which is also determining the spontaneity of the reaction. Right? Now what happens is, how do enzymes increase the rate of a reaction? By lowering down this activation energy. Now what do you mean by this activation energy? Activate means the energy required to activate the reactants so that they can cross this energy barrier and they can be converted effectively into product. So if this reaction is taking place in the absence of enzyme, in the presence of enzyme, the reaction would be like this. So you can see that enzyme is increasing the rate by lowering the activation energy. That is what is asked in the question also. If you look at the options, lowering energy of activation, raising without affecting, so the answer will be lowering the energy of activation. And how we are defining the energy of activation? The energy required to activate the reactants so that they can be converted into products. And how do we define enzymes? Enzymes are the biocatalyst which increases the rate of a biochemical reaction. And always remember, all enzymes are proteins except in which transfer RNA has a catalytic activity. Then question number 2, an amino acid without an asymmetrical carbon atom. Now, asymmetrical carbon atom is also known as a chiral carbon atom on which all the 4 substituents attached are different. Now, if you look at the structure of histidine, threonine or proline, it is actually known as a amino acid. Proline has this type of structure where this is the alpha carbon atom. Threonine has a normal structure like this, where again this is a alpha carbon atom. Histidine again has this structure in which again there is an alpha carbon atom. If you look at the structure of glycine, glycine is considered to be the simplest amino acid. Simplest amino acid. And glycine is the only amino acid which is optically inactive also. Now, why it is known as optically inactive? Because if you look at the structure of glycine, it is having no asymmetric carbon atom, no chiral carbon atom is there. As you can see, the 2 substituents attached to it are different. They are same. So if it is going to form a mirror image, that mirror image will be superimposable. And those compounds whose mirror images are superimposable, they are optically inactive because they lack a asymmetric carbon atom. So the answer to this question is very clear. Amino acid without an asymmetric carbon atom is glycine. And one very important point about glycine is it is one of the simplest and optically inactive amino acid. Threonine is having hydroxyl group. Serine and threonine are having hydroxyl group in them. Histidine is considered to be the most stable amino acid at physiological pH. And it is a basic amino acid along with lysine and arginine. Proline, I told you, it is an amino acid because it resembles certain properties of amino acids. That is why it is placed under that. The next question, number 3, a compound formed of sugar and nitrogenous base joined by a glycosidic bond. Now, first of all, you should know what do you mean by a glycosidic bond. It is simple COC. Whenever we talk about nitrogenous base, we know nitrogenous bases are of 2 types, purines and pyrimidines. Purines are adenine and guanine, and pyrimidines are thymine, cytosine, and uracil. Uracil is present in RNA and thymine is present in DNA. Now we know, see, first of all, read all the options. Whenever we have to draw the structure, whether it is DNA, whether it is RNA, all of you know DNA is double-stranded, RNA is single-stranded, right? And what happens is, base is there. This base is connected to sugar, which is connected to phosphate, which is further attached to this like this. If you talk about DNA, the bond between the bases, you know, adenine and thymine are linked by double bonds. The bond between the bases, is hydrogen bond. Base, the bond between the base and sugar is a glycosidic bond, which is also known as beta N glycosidic bond. And the base between sugar and phosphate is known as phosphodiester bond. Now here they are talking about nucleoside and nucleotide. So nucleoside is what? And nucleotide is what? What is the basic difference? Always remember, tide means T. T is 3. Means nucleotide has 3 components and nucleoside has only 2 components. Now what are the 2 components present in nucleoside? They are the base and the sugar. And nucleotide 3, that means base, sugar and phosphate. Suppose if I have to describe a nucleoside, the nucleoside would be simple adenosine. But if we talk about nucleotide, it would be adenosine, monophosphate, or diphosphate or triphosphate, depending upon the number of phosphate attached to it. So let's look at the question. The question is the compound formed of sugar and nitrogenous base joined by a glycosidic bond is a nucleoside. This was the question which was asked in AFMC exam. All the questions which I am discussing in my video, they have been asked in the previous year exams. Then next, a coenzyme is co-mane working in cooperation with the enzyme. So just now I told you that all enzymes are proteins. But just to increase the rate of a reaction, or you can say this enzyme has to work with its friends. So protein has a non-protein part associated with them, just to help the enzyme in function. That is why we say coenzyme, cofactor, which is working in cooperation with the enzyme. So this non-protein part is what? It is also known as the prosthetic group. If this prosthetic group is a metal ion, it is known as a cofactor. But if this prosthetic group is a organic molecule, or in general we say it is a vitamin, it will be known as a coenzyme. Just for example, you must have seen certain reactions. Just if I talk about glycolysis, you must have seen this reaction, glucose to glucose 6-phosphate, hexokinase, and here magnesium is written. So magnesium is what? It is a cofactor for hexokinase. So it will be a cofactor because it is a metal ion. But if we talk about coenzyme, just for example, if I take conversion of pyruvic acid to acetyl coenzyme A. Right, the enzyme here is PDH and you must have seen TPP is written here. TPP, or it is vitamin B1. So TPP is what? It is a coenzyme for PDH. Right. So a coenzyme is often a vitamin. Or in general, all the, you can say ki, the vitamins which belong to B complex, whether it is B1, thymine, whether it is B2, riboflavin, whether it is B3 niacin. You must have seen niacin. The active form of niacin is NAD, the most powerful reductant which is present. B2 is riboflavin, which is FAD. Again, FAD is the most powerful reductant. So these are what? These are nothing but vitamins and are acting as coenzymes. Means they are helping the enzyme in their reaction. Just the protein part of an enzyme is known as apoenzyme. But when this apoenzyme combines with this, it is known as a holoenzyme. Again, an important question which can be asked in the exam. So this is important. So the answer to this question would be often a vitamin. Then another very simple question and an important question. This was asked in UG NEET. 3 years back, DNA in bacteria is. Now, all of you know what is the basic difference between prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Now, some things in biology are clear from the word themselves. Pro means primitive and karyo means nucleus. So, pro means primitive nucleus they have. And if we talk about eukaryotes, U means new nucleus. Or you can say prokaryotes ka nucleus ya DNA is naked. It is lying as such in the cytoplasm. Means it is not associated with histones and non-histones. But if we look at the eukaryotes have a well-defined nucleus. Well-defined nucleus in a sense that they have a well-defined nucleus, will well-defined DNA, will well-defined nucleoplasm and everything. So the prokaryotic DNA is circular but without a membrane because it is lying as such, it is naked, and it is also known as nucleoid. So DNA in bacteria is circular, and because bacteria is what? Bacteria is a prokaryote. And eukaryotes mein it is linear and it is membrane bound. Another thing I want to tell you here is chloroplast and mitochondria. And mitochondria have similar DNA as to that of prokaryotes. That is why we say chloroplast and mitochondria are the two semi-autonomous organelles in our body also. Because they have their own set of machinery, they have their own DNA, so the method of gene regulation is restricted to them, right? So DNA in bacteria, this is again a very, very important question. Bacteria being a prokaryote will have a naked DNA, which is also known as nucleoid, means it is not associated with histones and non-histones. Then again, this is an important question. Lactose molecule is composed of. Now, what is lactose? It is a disaccharide, first of all. There are actually 3 disaccharides which play a very, very important role in our body. Lactose, maltose, and sucrose. Lactose is formed of beta glucose and beta galactose. Maltose is formed of alpha glucose and alpha glucose. The linkage is beta 1,4 here, which is a glycosidic linkage. The linkage here is alpha 1,4. In sucrose, it is alpha glucose and beta fructose, or the linkage is alpha 1,2. It can be beta 1,2 also. So the question here is, and this sucrose is also known as invert sugar. So the answer to this question is, since they have asked about lactose, so lactose would be glucose and galactose both in beta form. Right? Maltose has glucose and glucose. Glucose and fructose is present in sucrose. Then accumulation of glucose 6-phosphate inhibits the activity of hexokinase. Now this is again a very important question. Now see, what happens is, if we talk about inhibition, always remember all the biochemical reactions, always remember, they undergo allosteric mode by feedback. Feedback is what? Just suppose here the question is accumulation of glucose 6-phosphate. You know glucose 6-phosphate converts glucose to glucose 6-phosphate, and the enzyme is hexokinase. ATP, this is the first step of glycolysis. Glycolysis occurs when the concentration of glucose is more. Obviously, when we are eating something, it has to be oxidized. So, it is not always, possible that we keep on eating. A stage will come when we are resting. At that stage, what will happen? When there is increased concentration of glucose, more glucose 6-phosphate will be produced. But a stage will come when this glucose 6-phosphate starts giving instructions to hexokinase that no more synthesis of glucose 6-phosphate is required. Right, because when we study the metabolism, we have to study different states of our body. One is the well-fed state, when we are eating, when we are having a proper diet. One is starvation, when we are not eating anything from outside, or prolonged fasting. So how the body, how the metabolism in the body takes place, it is actually an equilibrium between these three stages. So glycolysis is considered to be the most important pathway which gives energy to RBCs. So regulation of every reaction is very, very important. Always remember. And that is why we say the role of enzymes is actually very important in biochemistry. Right. So glucose, increased concentration of glucose 6-phosphate will inhibit the activity by feedback inhibition as well as allosteric inhibition. So the answer would be both B and C. Basically, what do you mean by allosteric inhibition? Allo means other, and steric is the interaction. So what happens is, if suppose the enzyme is this is the active site of the enzyme and this is the substrate. Right, suppose if I say this is the substrate and this is the formation of the enzyme substrate complex, and then you can say enzyme will be liberated and some product will be produced. So whenever allosteric inhibition is there, this product will go and bind somewhere other than the active site, because this is the active site. It is not going to bind to the active site. Active site is mandatory. The active site is only a house for the substrate. So this will bind to some other site other than the active site, so that there is a change in the conformation of the enzyme, so that for some time it cannot accept that substrate. So this product is giving what? It is giving a feedback to the enzyme by binding somewhere else. So this is what is allosteric inhibition. Very, very important mode of inhibition in the reactions. Then again, this is a very important question. At what stage of the cell cycle are histone proteins synthesized? Now for this, all of you know, if we see cell cycle, this is a cell cycle. You can see G1, S, G2. Now whether it depends, because this is what is karyokinesis followed by cytokinesis. Division of the nucleus followed by division of the cytoplasm is there. So here the checkpoint is there, whether it is a somatic cell, whether it is a germinal cell. So if it is a somatic cell, it will undergo mitosis. If it is a germinal cell, it will undergo meiosis. Now before a cell prepares itself to undergo any division, it has to undergo so many steps, because these are, as you can see from the picture, these are the checkpoints which are preparing the cell to undergo division. So as it is clear from the word itself, G1 is for the growth. S stands for synthetic phase. Synthetic phase means synthesis will occur. DNA synthesis will occur, the synthesis of histones will occur, and then again it will grow, and the cell will be prepared to undergo cell division, whether it is this cell or this cell. So here karyokinesis will be there, followed by cytokinesis. Right, now what does the question say? Histone proteins. Whenever we talk about synthesis, it has to be during S phase. Always remember. If suppose the question would be asked like this, at what stage of the cell cycle DNA is synthesized, it would be S phase, because the S and replication occurs in the S phase. Right. Then primary carbon dioxide acceptor in C3 plants. Again, a very, very important question and most frequently asked question in the exam. First of all, you should know that the photosynthesis in plants is divisible into three: C3, C4 and C2 cycle. right? C3 is because first stable product is a 3-carbon compound, which is phosphoglycerol acid. C4, the first stable product is a 4-carbon compound, which is oxaloacetic acid. C2 is, which is having 2 carbon atoms, which is PEP. So C2 is known as photorespiration. C3 is normal. C3 is a cycle which is occurring in all the plants, I must say. And C4 is a characteristic feature of the plants which survive in dry or tropical areas, or you can say which have a special Kranz anatomy. Overall, if we see, C3 cycle is available. It is the most important cycle of photosynthesis. So what happens here is there are 3 steps. All of you have studied the C3 cycle in detail. What happens is RUBP. RUBP stands for ribulose 1,5-bisphosphate. It is always bisphosphate, not diphosphate. In some books, you'll find it as diphosphate. Di means on 1 carbon they are placed, because phosphate is having high energy. It cannot be placed on one particular carbon. So it has to be bis or adjacent. That is why it is mentioned first and fifth. So it accepts, actually C3 cycle occurs in 2 phases. First is obviously carboxylation. Carboxylation is attachment of carbon dioxide to this. You know, ribulose means it has 5 carbon atoms. If it combines with one more molecule of carbon dioxide, it will split up into 5 plus 1, 6. So it will split up into 3 carbon, that is 3-phosphoglyceric acid, So first stable product is a 3-carbon compound. Second would be a reduction. It undergoes a reduction. And third is whatever RUBP is utilized in the first step, that is regenerated back. Ab here a very important question which is asked in the exam is regarding the enzyme. The enzyme here is Rubisco. Rubisco stands for ribulose bisphosphate carboxylase and oxygenase. Very, very important. This is a very important enzyme. So if carboxylation is occurring, C3 cycle will be there. But if oxygenation is there, then C2 cycle is there, which is operative in 3 organelles. But here the question is simple. Primary carbon dioxide acceptor in C3 plants, it has to be RUBP, ribulose bisphosphate, or ribulose 1,5-bisphosphate. Is it clear? The next, Kranz anatomy is one of the characteristics of the, just now I discussed, Kranz anatomy is actually present in sugarcane, in sorghum, in maize. And basically what happens is, it means wreath-like. Wreath-like or chloroplasts are dimorphic. Chloroplasts are dimorphic. Dimorphic means they exist in 2 forms. One is bundle sheath and second is mesophyll. Bundle sheath lack grana. I'll show you the image. You can see here. You can see these are the mesophyll cells, where actually carbon dioxide fixation takes place. And then this is the bundle sheath cell, where the rest of the reaction occurs. So this is a characteristic feature of C4 plants. Very, very important question can be asked on C4. Question can be asked on Kranz anatomy also. So bundle sheath lack grana, and then mesophyll mein carbon dioxide fixation would be there. And obviously first stable product here would be oxaloacetic acid. This oxaloacetic acid will be converted into malic acid, and this malic acid will be transported in the bundle sheath cells, where it will undergo C3 cycle. So just now I told you that C3 cycle is the most important one. Even though C4 cycle is there, even though C2 cycle is there, but ultimate acceptor is C3 cycle. So this is important. Always remember Cran's anatomy. One question can be asked on this. Then the process used in the conversion of pyruvate to acetyl coenzyme A. Now see, what is the structure of pyruvic acid? CH3, C double bond O, COOH. This is pyruvic acid. And acetyl coenzyme A is CH3, SCOA. You can see acetyl coenzyme A. If you see the reaction, what is happening? You know this reaction takes place in the mitochondria. So obviously oxygen is required. So the process will be known as oxidative. And what is happening is here number of carbon atoms are 1, 2 and 3. And here the number of carbon atoms are 2. That means carbon dioxide is being given out. Along with dehydrogenation is there. And the enzyme here is PDH, which stands for pyruvate dehydrogenase complex. So this is what? Simple removal of carbon dioxide is there in the presence of oxygen. So it is oxidative decarboxylation. And that is what is written here. Oxidative decarboxylation. Catalyzed by PDH, and it requires thymine for its reaction. Oxidative dehydration, removal of water. Oxidative phosphorylation means attachment of inorganic phosphate, and oxidative dehydrogenation is removal of hydrogen. So the answer here is oxidative decarboxylation. Then next, anaerobic respiration in muscles gives rise to the following. Now see, what happens is this pyruvic acid, in the presence of oxygen, it forms acetyl coenzyme A, the structure which I wrote just now. In the absence of oxygen, it gets converted into lactic acid, CH3, CHOH, COOH. This is lactic acid and this is acetyl coenzyme A. Anaerobic respiration in muscles. So muscles mein what happens is this reaction is reversible and this reaction is irreversible because this is occurring in the mitochondria. And now you see what is the structure here. It is this. This is the structure of pyruvic acid. So the answer will be this. This is again a very important question. This is also known as lactic acid fermentation. When we continuously exercise, we get tired because of the accumulation of this lactic acid. We say the muscle is in fatigue, muscle fatigue due to the accumulation of this lactic acid. And this lactic acid gives energy via Cori's cycle. The next question, all enzymes of TCA cycle are located in the mitochondrial matrix, which is located in the prokaryotes. So only reaction, only enzyme of TCA cycle which is located in the mitochondrial matrix, except this is succinic acid or succinate dehydrogenase, which is also known as SDH. Except this, all the enzymes are present in the matrix of mitochondria. Because you know matrix of mitochondria, because you know that TCA cycle is operative in the mitochondrial matrix. Suppose if we see the structure of mitochondria, this is the matrix. Here TCA cycle is operative and this succinate dehydrogenase is present here. And that is why this is also known as marker enzyme of mitochondria. And it has a very low redox potential too. That is why we say one molecule of FAD will give 1.5 ATP, whereas one molecule of NAD gives 2.5 ATP. There is a difference of 1 ATP. Then next, what is the vital capacity of our lungs? Now, before taking up this question, let's see some of the definitions which are actually important. See, one is tidal volume. How do we define tidal volume? It is the volume of the air normally inspired or expired without any effort. So it is what? It is about 500 ml. Inspiratory reserve volume is what? Extra amount of air which can be inhaled forcibly after a normal respiration. It is about 2000 to 2500 milliliter. Expiratory reserve volume is extra amount of air which can be exhaled forcibly after a normal respiration. And if we talk about vital capacity of the lungs, amount of air which one can inhale as well as exhale with maximum effort. The thing which is left will be known as a residual volume. Amount of air left in the lungs after forcibly expiration, it is about 1500 ml. Now question here is, what is vital capacity? So if we have to see, total lung capacity is what? It is equal to vital capacity plus residual volume. If we have to calculate vital capacity, it would be total lung capacity minus residual volume. Isn't it? And now let's see the options. Inspiratory, no, yes. This is the answer, total lung capacity minus the residual volume. Right? This is again a very important question. Question can be asked on any of the terms also. Then which one is photosensitive in mammals? Very, very important. It is rhodopsin. Function of vitamin A. Whenever we enter from bright light to dim light, rhodopsin is generated. But when we enter from dim to bright light, this rhodopsin is cleaved. That is why we say rods and cone cells. Rod cells help in night vision and cone cells help in day vision. So if we talk about photosensitive in mammals, it has to be rhodopsin, which is actually formed from rhodo plus opsin. Whenever it is required, it is synthesized. Whenever we enter from dim light to bright light, this rhodopsin is cleaved. So that for 1 second we can't see it. Our retina cannot adjust itself, but after a second automatically we can see the lights. And that is why we say if the dark adaptation time is increased, it leads to night blindness. Light blindness is a characteristic feature of deficiency of vitamin A. So the answer is clear, it is rhodopsin. Then centrosomes are present only in the animal cells, because centrosomes are required for the arrangement of mitotic spindle. This is again a very important question. Then one of these is associated with digestion of fats. Now, if we talk about fat digestion, it has to be glyoxysomes. But when we talk about fat oxidation, there is a difference. Fat oxidation is for mitochondria and peroxisomes. But if we talk about digestion, it is glyoxysomes by the glyoxylate cycle. The glyoxysomes contain, besides catalase, the enzyme that catalyzes the conversion of fats to sucrose. Very, very important cycle. Found only in the plant cell, because glyoxylate cycle is a characteristic feature of plant cells, particularly in the cells of germinating fatty acids. Then fluid mosaic model of cell membrane, very important question. Fluidity of the membrane. Mosaic pattern mein, it was given by Singer and Nicholson. They were awarded Nobel Prize also. The rest of the scientists, Watson and Crick, gave the model of structure of DNA and they gave the model of cell membrane. But fluid mosaic model was given by Singer and Nicholson. And you can see it has a bilayer phospholipids key, and you can see phospholipids being lipids, they have a hydrophilic and hydrophobic. Hydrophobic is inside and philic is upwards. And they have different type of proteins, like they have glycoproteins, they have oligosaccharides, they have integral proteins, peripheral proteins, surface proteins, which help in the transportation. Very important again. So fluid mosaic model was given by Singer and Nicholson. Then we come over to the last question. A competitive inhibitor of succinate dehydrogenase. A very important question again. Competitive inhibitor means there is a competition. First of all, I'll tell you the answer. It is malonate. Basically, this succinate dehydrogenase is an enzyme of TCA cycle. It converts succinic acid to fumaric acid. Succinic acid. So basically what happens is malonate resembles succinic acid in structure. So this succinate dehydrogenase, instead of binding with succinic acid, binds with malonate. And if this binds with this, there is no reaction, or fumaric acid won't be produced. That is what is competitive inhibition all about. Suppose if I have to draw it, see, this is the normal reaction which forms enzyme and the product. Inhibitor is resembling, so inhibitor, if it binds, it forms enzyme inhibitor complex. So effective product formation won't be there. So this is what is competitive inhibition. So this is all about some of the questions which have been asked in your UG NEET exam. So wishing you luck. I hope that the final date of UG NEET comes as early as possible. So wishing you all the best. Take care. Good night.